1972 here, also, of course, known as Brian. By now, you probably know that. So anyways, this is part of the film community chat. Favorite genre of film that we like to watch. And just to preface this before the video, before I talk about my favorite genre of film, I know that there's been other subjects that have been covered, and I know I'm way behind on them. Like Criterion's was one, and I have a lot of Criterions. I have like a few hundred, or maybe a little more than a few hundred. I've got a lot of them. Maybe, I don't know, 400, 300, 500. I have a lot. A lot of them are Japanese ones. They have a lot of Japanese ones in the Criterion collection. And I'm really into Japan. I like to go there. I have some money saved up. Also, I can speak some Japanese. I'm not really fluent, but I've had three Japanese teachers. But anyways, that's digressing a bit. And then there was another topic of like the film viewing experience or something, and I don't know if it was tackling 4K and Blu-ray or going to the theater. I don't remember. I'll have to take a look at those videos. But I'd like to, at some point, tackle those topics as well. Hopefully soon. Maybe the Criterion one I can do fairly soon. I know I'm months behind on that. I'm sorry that I am. But I thought I'd get involved with this particular topic. And so, and the other thing is, the other thing was asking what are your favorite films from 2010 to 2019. I guess there are some favorites of mine, but I have no idea what's come and gone in the past decade, because it's not just this past decade, because I've seen other films from other decades. So it's kind of hard to say. It's hard to remember everything I watch. And, I probably have some of them and some of them not, and I just can't remember them. So I can't really do that list, because I can't figure out how to handle that. But anyways, enough of that. So my favorite genre of film would be foreign movies. I mean, there are other genres of films I like, like, well, I don't know, like dramas or epic films like Lawrence of Arabia, and there are, interesting dramas out there, great Hollywood movies. Citizen Kane is a great movie, I think, Touch of Evil, I guess. But, I don't know. I mean, and then there are directors I like a lot, like Stanley Kubrick. Obviously, you would guess, because Kubrick is my favorite director. So obviously, my YouTube channel would say Kubrick lover. And but then I like some other directors like Hitchcock and David Fincher, Ridley Scott, David Lean. But a lot of these directors I like are foreign directors. So I'm sort of repeating myself, because I did a video a while back about top 10 favorite foreign films, and then I even went further than that, and I went into top 10 favorite Asian films. So I'm going to tread a little bit back on the foreign film area. Some of them might be my favorite foreign films, and I've got a bunch of movies stacked up around me. So I'm going to try to show them as quick as possible, not make this video too long. And I don't think I'll tell the plots or anything about all these films, but just to give you an idea of how into foreign films I am, I'll show you. So it was like, as I mentioned, I'm into Japanese films, so I've got some mostly, a lot of these are Criterions. Ikiru, Meaning to Live, by Kurosawa, about a guy whose stomach cancer is like 6 months to live, and he has to do something meaningful in his life. What I like about foreign movies is that, unlike like Hollywood films that I do like, and I do like, big I guess I'm not totally into these comic book movies or um, big action movies. I mean, I guess I enjoy them, and I like all kinds of movies. I mean, like for example, Blade Runner, I like a lot. It's like an art film in a way. It's like an really expensive art film. So I like these art films. I like independent movies. Independent movies, I would say, are sort of tread in a way in the same ground as foreign films do. And the thing I would say about foreign films is they do two things that I really like about them, and that is, first off, you're meeting another culture, so you're seeing the world from a different perspective. So like the way you see things where you're from, people may see it differently from where they're from, and you may gain a new perspective on how to view things. And but the other important thing that you learn by watching foreign films is that we're all human. We all cry, we all laugh, we're all happy and sad, we get mad. Um, we all are born, we all die. We all get sick, we all get old. We're young at one time. We're in love. Um, so but so that I really enjoy foreign movies. Again, Ikiru, and then you get classic Seven Samurai. Epic film, which has a lot of stuff in it. It's got romance. It's got family. It's got action in it. It's got like a philosophical points in it. Just loaded with stuff. I have to admit, when the first time I saw Seven Samurai, I couldn't get into it. But then, like maybe it was the second viewing, the third viewing. I'm hooked on this. It's one of my favorite movies. My favorite Kurosawa is Throne of Blood, which is based on Macbeth, which is very dark, but I really like it. That's what I like about foreign movies, like this one, Tokyo Story by Ozu. One of the things I really like about foreign films, you could also apply these to independent films, I think, and that's because in real life, not just in foreign countries, like third world countries maybe, or even second world or first world, but like sometimes things don't always turn out great. Because like with Hollywood, and I like Hollywood films, don't get me wrong, but like with the happy endings, life doesn't always end in a happy ending. Sometimes tragic things happen, and I think foreign films acknowledge this more than sometimes American films care to do, or at least some American films care to do, or like you're not going to see at the Cineplex a movie like Tokyo Story, I think. About an elderly couple. I mean, that's not very bankable, I would say, at a big multiplex. But it's about elderly couple, and they're visiting their adult children, and like the adult children basically want nothing to do with them. And one of their sons, I think, died in World War II, and their daughter-in-law still honors them as her in-laws, and she goes out of her way to help make their stay in Tokyo good. Help to enjoy themselves while sacrificing herself. Taking work off just to be hospitable to her in-laws. So. And then you got films like Fires on the Plain by Kan Ichikawa, which is like about the futility of war and the vanity of the generals, and like how they think it's worth it to keep on fighting when you should give up. I don't know, but like the main character in this film, I mean, he meets. It's not a happy film, but it's a very good film. And it just shows the tragedy of war. And then another film that Kan Ichikawa did, set in World War II, about a soldier that becomes a monk, and he plays a Burmese harp. Really good movie. And he when he was with the army, he used the harp to warn them of like the enemy being close or whatever, and when they're taken to a prisoner of war camp by the British, he's away from the group when that happens, and he gets hurt, and this monk nurses him back to health, and then he becomes this monk. So really good movie. And then you got the art films. You know, Japan had art films like in the 60s, and you see it in other countries like France and Italy and all. But anyways, I had this box set by Hiroshi Teshigahara. It's got Pitfall, Woman in the Dunes, and The Face of Another. Face of Another is Tatsuya Nakadai. I don't know if Tatsuya Nakadai's first film, well, I don't know if it was one of his first films. Yojimbo by Kurosawa with Toshiro Mifune. Toshiro Mifune played Sanjuro in that film. And Yojimbo, I believe in Japanese, means bodyguard. And there's a sequel to that called Sanjuro. But anyways, yeah, Woman in the Dunes is regarded as one of the great art films of Japanese cinema. I don't know if I should. I'll briefly. I'm going on. I'm just showing you the covers. Pitfall there. Women in the Dunes there. Face of Another there. And supplements. But anyways, that's those were art films that were made in the 60s in Japan, and they were I think they were influenced by the Europeans. Another great Asian movie, which is like like 5 different stories in it. It's like historical. This is from Taiwan. It's like historical. It's a kung fu movie. It's a Buddhist movie. It's a ghost movie. It's like how long is this movie? I think it's like 3 hours long or something. It's hard to see the minutes on here. How long is this movie? Well, I can't. Hang on. I'll be right back. This film is 180 minutes. I think it's 3 hours long. It's a really good movie, and it's Touches End by King Hu. Okay, so now let's go to the European part of the video. I guess we'll start off with Italy. They have the neorealist movement, and you have movies like Bicycle Thieves. Very simple story, and neorealism used people, just everyday people, not professional actors. Like if you had a baker in the film, you had a real baker play the role, or if it was a policeman, you had a real policeman play the role. I think it's a little more complex than that, but anyways, this guy needs a bicycle for his work, and his bicycle gets stolen. And I don't want to get into too much detail about this, but this is a really good film. And again, it's sad, but it's a great movie. And I think this was a film he made right after it, Umberto di Vittorio De Sica. This is very sad, too, about an elderly man who's on a pension plan, and his landlord, she wants to rip up his apartment, and I think she wants to raise the rent or something. I don't know, but really good movie. It's very sad, too. Then you get to one of my favorite movies of all time. I've watched this many times. It's like 2 hours and 50 minutes. I love this movie, La Dolce Vita, The Sweet Life, or The Good Life. I think the literal translation is The Good Life, Dolce, but I think it more means The Good Life. And it's about Marcello Mastroianni's character, who's a writer. He's like he like stays up till dawn. He sleeps with all these women. He's a reporter on the Rome, Italy, the scene with all these celebrities and royalty, and basically like about the vanity of it all and the emptiness of it all. I really enjoy. I really love this film a lot. And I could like personally relate to it to some degree. But yeah, so this is the period of Italian cinema where it's starting to change to more, well, with Fellini it started off more, quote, realistic, if you will. Technically, he had a little surrealism in La Strada. I have La Strada. I'm not showing it, but I mean, Strada might have had like little hints of surrealism in it, but as time wore on with Fellini, he got more surrealistic with his filmmaking. The next film would be the starting of that. Well, a really, really getting into that kind of way of filmmaking, and that's 8½, which was his 8½" film. And Marcello Mastroianni played a film director, and he's having problems with his marriage and his mistress and his making his movie. And this is the Dolce Vita is my personal favorite, but 8½, still a great movie. And I don't understand why the whether it's Miramax or Weinstein Company, why they had to make 9, because I think it's a remake of 8½, and that's like sacrilege. Why would you make something a remake of something that's already great? Anyways, keeping going on with the Italian theme, we got La Ventura. I don't know the exact translation of this in English. It might mean the journey or the adventure, but it's about a woman, Monika Vitti, who has a best friend. What's her name? Leah Massara? Is that the woman's name that plays her? I can't remember. And she, her best friend is going to marry this man played by Gabriel Farzetti, and they go boating on the ocean. They go to this island, and this woman disappears, and Monika Vitti and the boyfriend of the girl that disappeared, they basically have a relationship. And one of the things about Antonioni, and I'll also mention another filmmaker later on in the video, Ingmar Bergman. I believe these two directors wanted. I mean, I believe women. I believe women, when they see films like these, I think women have said, I don't know. I think they're representing women the way women perceive things. The way women see things. Because with Fellini, they're more like a sex object and a fantasy, and that's like from a male perspective. And Antonioni and Bergman were more seeing from the woman's perspective, if that makes any sense. So, anyways, and La Ventura is, I guess, one of my favorite movies, favorite Italian movies too. But I guess my personal favorite Antonioni is La Notte, with again Marcello Mastroianni, and then you got Monika Vitti there, Antonioni's muse, and you got Jeanne Moreau, who's a French actress, who Mastroianni and Moreau play a married couple, and their marriage is on the rocks, and Monika Vitti makes appearance at the end. It sort of reminds me of the Ice Storm a little, this movie, but yeah, I like the atmosphere of the film, and the Jean Moreau character is much more mature than and much more grown up than the Mastroianni character, in a way, you could say, in the movie. Okay, so then we go to Bertolucci, The Conformist. I guess people are sort of split on this. I've seen on the internet, like, they think Maybe it's too stagey, they think. I don't know. Maybe I'm putting words in people's mouths. Maybe I sort of see that, but I still like this film. I like the cinematography. I like the production design, um, the music. I can't remember who did the music. I think it was um, what's his name? Oh, Ennio Morricone. Or maybe not. I don't think it was. I don't know. I can't remember. But anyways, the music is good for this. It is good in this movie. And cheating in a certain way, but it's an Italian director, but it's spoken in English. And this is another good Bertolucci movie, The Last Emperor. And it's a very sad movie. So again, you're treading on that tragic element. And this is about the last emperor of China and what happened to him during his life. They basically was a puppet, like during, he was a puppet emperor at the start of his life, while the real, I guess it was the nationalists or something, ran the country of China. And, then the communists take over and he goes to a workers' camp or whatever, prisoner of war camp. And then because of his collaborating with the Japanese. Now we go to another country. We go to Sweden, and I'm really just covering one director from that country. Great director, Ingmar Bergman. Summer with Monika, great movie. About two teenagers. I think they're teenagers, and they go on vacation, and basically they don't act responsible, and the results, they're not prepared for the results at the end, and Monica acts sort of, well, I don't want to spoil it, but it's a really good movie. I think it was banned at the time it came out, and then he made another movie. Well, he's made a lot of great movies, but here's another one, The Virgin Spring, which Wes Craven I think it was Wes Craven's first film, Last House on the Left. It's ripped right from this movie, Virgin Spring, about a young daughter who gets raped and how her family deals with that. So that's a good movie. And her sister is like more of a pagan, and I can't remember who plays the sister, the older sister. Harriet Anderson, I think. Anyway, Seventh Seal, one of the great classic gateway foreign films of all time, along with Seven Samurai, about death, playing a chess game with the knight to say, and the knight, if he wins, he won't die. It's set during the plague. Really good movie, very allegorical. Then he took his major step artistically and made Persona, and it's about a nurse and her patient and how they like their identity, and it's a very arty type film, very avant-garde. I don't understand it all completely, but well, I don't know. I mean, the thing I'll mention, when I first when I first got into these movies, most of these movies I heard about, I hadn't seen. I've seen photos of them in books, books about film, like there's borrowing from the library or buying. And I'd never seen these films until maybe my late teens or early 20s. And then they started to pour in, through places like Blockbuster. And that's how I found these movies, So, I mean, I remember buying this on videotape because this is the only way it could be bought originally. And it was like a 16, well, I don't know if it was a 60 millimeter print, but it was back in those days with the video cassettes. Sometimes what happened was if it was like a black and white film, sometimes they'd have white subtitles. And they did this with 60 millimeter. If you saw a movie at like the library, back in those days, like the late 80s or the mid 80s, well, maybe the mid 80s or early 80s, and you saw it on a film projector. They didn't have like tracing around around the subtitle letters so you could see the subtitles well. It was like white. And if it was a black and white film like Persona and you see like a scene like this and the subtitles are down here, you couldn't read what they were saying. So that was the case with my video cassette of Persona. And then we have my favorite Ingmar Bergman movie. Really tragic, about a violinist couple. And basically their country gets invaded by another country. And I think it was a commentary on, in a sense, on Vietnam and just the dire and base, well, I don't know, base, just the things people will do when they're faced with dire circumstances, the things that they wouldn't do if things were all right. You know, what people will do to resort to surviving and things they would not do in their regular lives that they would find shameful, you know. So this is a shame. So really good movie. Last Swedish film I'll show is this film, Cries and Whispers, about a dying sister here, played by Harriet Anderson. And her sisters are played by Liv Ullmann, Ingrid Thulin, and a maid. I can't remember who's played that, but it's a really good movie. Excellent use of color, like reds and whites. Next up, we're going to French movies, but sort of shortcut through Spain with Luis Buñuel, who's one of my favorite directors. And he directed this film called Viridiana, which is about this nun who's going to join the nunnery, but her played by Sylvia Pinel, and her uncle, played by Fernando Rey, who was a regular of Buñuel's. He wants her to visit him at his ranch before she joins the nunnery. She does. Something happens, and she's left with running the ranch. And I won't get into details about it, but it's a very interesting movie. And then he started making films in France. Maybe this was his first in France. He had a varied career. He started off, I think, in Spain. His first film he made was Salvador Dali. His second film he was going to make with Dali, but I think, well, no, I don't think. I mean, Dali just sort of disappeared from that. His first film is called Un Chien Andalou, and that was, if you see that film, it's a famous film where the guy has a razor near a woman's eye, and then it goes for extreme close-up, and the eyeballs cut out, which is just a cow's eye, but you'd never know unless you were told, you know. Well, you know it's fake, obviously, but, you know, it's very shocking. But anyways, then he did some Mexican films in his career. Maybe he did an American movie. He did some Spanish films. And then eventually he did some French films. And one of the ones he did was this great one called Belle de Jour, Beauty of the Day, with Catherine Deneuve, about a woman who wants to be a prostitute and just is a prostitute during the day. So that's a pretty good one. Then we get into one of the most prominent French directors, Jean-Luc Godard, with Breathless, his first film, which was broke a lot of taboos, like jump cuts, maybe handheld cameras, but yeah, he was like the starter of this. I have another film, I didn't even think of it, but I think I've become less welcoming to his films as I used to be, which is Francois Truffaut. And his first film was 400 Blows, and 400 Blows and Breathless where it started the new wave in France. They were critics, Truffaut and Godard rather, for Cahiers de Cinema, which might mean something like Journal of Cinema. And then they started making their own movies, and they had other directors too that were critics, like Chabrol, I believe, and Romer, and who else was just, you know, some of those guys, and maybe Jacques Tati was before them. And speaking of French directors, there's some directors who I think are overrated. And one of the directors I think that's overrated is Renoir. I know people are going to stone me for saying that, but I think he's overrated. Just my personal opinion. You can't like everything, Anyways, Godard made Band of Outsiders, also known as Band Apart, with Anna Karenina, who's now dead. She just died recently. I think she was married to Godard, but her friends in this film tried to arrange a robbery of her aunt, maybe it is. But it's a good movie. It's got the famous scene of them running through the what's that called, the Louvre, and their dancing scene with the jukebox and the pool hall. He made another great film, Alphaville, great science fiction film done on a really low budget, not using any science fiction sets or anything like that. But his crowning achievement, and I don't know if he's really met, because before this film, I think he was more commercial, and then after the film I'm going to show you, I think he's more political, philosophical, didactic, or whatever. And by that point, I think, even though maybe his films are kind of interesting in a way, this is where he reached the apex, I believe, and it's Weekend, which is about a married couple who are going to collect the wife's. They're gonna kill the wife's parents and collect the insurance money, and then both of them are going to try to double cross the other and live with their lovers. And it has like apocalyptic version of France at the time of 67. Yeah, 67. This is the time of Vietnam and, revolts in the streets and all that kind of stuff. And it's a commentary on consumerism, Marxism. This might be a comedy. It might be a social or political commentary. It might be both. But whatever angle it is, or both, it's a very, very good movie. I really enjoy this movie. And then you get to a director who I think came before the New Wave, but he was making films around this time period. He made a Samurai with Alain Delon, about a hitman who operates by the code of the samurai. And I've got a whole bunch of JeanPierre Melville films, and JeanPierre Melville makes a cameo in Breathless when he's interviewed by the female lead, Jean Seberg, I guess American woman, and she interviews him at an airport in Breathless. Then he made this really great film JeanPierre Melville did, I think it's 69, yes, called Army of Shadows, which was done on a fairly low budget, I believe, but you wouldn't know by watching it. Well, I think it was maybe a little bigger than a low budget. But in any event, I think Melville died in the early 70s. This film didn't get much distribution. It didn't really get a lot of exposure when it came out, and then it was re-released in. It had a theatrical debut in 2006, and then it was put on DVD, and it really is a good movie. And it's a shame it didn't get the acclaim. They didn't get any interest in it while it was around, but really good movie. So. And let's see. So where are we now? Okay, so now we get to German movies. I know I'm going on, and I really am passionate about foreign cinema. Anyways, you got Fritz Lang. We're sort of going back now in time. We're going to the 30s, and he made this film about a child murderer played by Peter Lorre called M, which is based on a true story. And he used, even though it was the sound era was starting, he also used silence very well. He also made a really good silent film, which was the most expensive film in Germany at the time. and bombed at the box office, but now is a classic called Metropolis, science fiction film. You got later directors like Werner Herzog, this Werner Herzog Kinski box set. Klaus Kinski was the only actor who worked with, Klaus Kinski only worked with one director more than once. I believe it was more, this is the only director he worked with more than once, since Werner Herzog. For contemporary viewers, Werner Herzog is in the, it's called The Mandalorian on the Disney Plus with the Star Wars thing. He mentioned something about bounty hunters. It's kind of funny about Werner Herzog because he says in the commentaries on some of these, like maybe it's like Geary, Wrath of God, one of my favorite films of all time, and Fitzcarraldo, that he doesn't want to use big Hollywood effects or anything. And great tale about a crazy madman, a Geary, Wrath of God, who thinks what do you call it? El Dorado actually exists. And then you got Fitzcarraldo about a man who wants to build an opera house in the middle of the Amazon. But Kinski was kind of a pistol, kind of a hard guy to deal with, and Herzog knew how to deal with him, I guess you could say. Then you get to directors like Faust Bender, who is involved with like dominance and sexuality and power relationships or whatever, as I've heard on like video essays about him. But anyways, he's made some really great films, and there's three in particular I like a lot. This one being one. Beware of a Holy Whore, which I think is a commentary not just on what it's like to be on a film set, which I think is a pretty good rendition, but it's also a very good premise, or it's a very good way of showing boredom and what boredom is like, and I think it's really good. And you get that film in the early Faust Bender box set by Criterion. It's in Eclipse. It's got some other great films here, but that's one of my personal favorites of Faust Bender. And I love this movie, Bitter Tears of Petra von Kant. If you watch my channel, if you scroll down my videos, this is one of the films I've done films that I've watched over a week sometimes, but I've done a few videos where I've reviewed just one movie, and this is one, and I really love this movie a lot. It's about only 6 actresses shot in one location in a bedroom and stairs of this woman's house, and this 40-year-old woman, 40-something-year-old woman, and her obsession with this girl named Karen, and the main character is Petra von Kant. Very good movie. And then you got World on a Wire by Faust Bender. He made 30, 40 films before he died in his, I'm confused, is it 30s or 40s? It was either his early 30s or his early 40s. He died, I think, of a drug overdose. But he made this film called World on a Wire, and I think it didn't get a lot of, maybe it got attention in Germany. I'm not sure, but nobody really knew about this until fairly recently, maybe here at least. But basically, it's The Matrix before there was The Matrix. That's the same idea, kind of, for The Matrix. And then you got, going to another country, you got Russia. And this is Tarkovsky. He's a pretty cool director. Most of his films are these very long shots. I think he does some slow motion in the shots, and it's a very atmospheric kind of filmmaking. This is kind of a departure from all that, but this is technically it's not a departure because it was his first film, and I think he was taking it over from somebody else. But this is my favorite of Tarkovsky's. Ivan's Childhood, about a boy surviving World War II and working for the Soviets against the Germans. And really enjoyable movie. I know he's made some other films. I don't know if I'm wild about Solaris, but I like Stalker. I like Sacrifice. I like Nostalgia. So but yeah, he's a great director. Then you have these films. I've only watched one of them. Martin Scorsese's World Cinema Project, but he has a bunch of foreign movies he's chosen. I think they're all foreign. And the only one I watched is Tuki Buki from Senegal, which I guess is sort of the Citizen Kane of Africa. I don't know, but But anyways, I thought I'd show you these because he's Martin Scorsese is an encyclopedia of film knowledge, and if you want to see like films that somebody regards highly, and Martin Scorsese, that kind of a guy. If you have the Criterion channel, you can pick. I think you can see all these films, if not more of these. And he did another one for Criterion, for the Criterion collection, box number 2 of the World Cinema Project, Martin Scorsese's World Cinema Project. And we're getting towards the end now. Now we're getting to Polish cinema. One of the greatest debut films of all time, Knife in the Water by Roman Polanski. Very simple story. A married couple pick up a hitchhiker. The hitchhiker is vying for the affection of the wife of the husband that's on the trip with them on a sailing trip. And he tags along, and there's antagonism. And I think it's much more complex and yet simple at the same time. And I think the knife is like a sexual kind of a connotation, if you will, in the water and everything like that. But very good movie. He made another great film. Again, I'm cheating. This is in English, again starring Catherine Deneuve. I think it was after she did Belle de Jour, or was it before? No, I think it was before, because it says 65, I believe here. Oh, by the way, this competed against 8.5, I believe, and 8.5 won. It's 2 great movies in the same year. About a woman this woman that goes crazy, being left alone in her sister's apartment in London, and she starts going crazy, imagining all these things. There's a homage to one of the shots in this film in the movie Day of the Dead by George Romero. And finally, to close off the video, we've got the Colors Trilogy by Krzysztof Kieslowski. He made the Decalogue. I should have shown that too. Maybe I should have shown that as well. That's a great set of films to watch. If you look at my channel, there's a review of the Decalogue, so I guess I'll cover it for the Decalogue. The Decalogue is, about the 10 Commandments. But Kieslowski wasn't a director that tried to force his beliefs on people or he wasn't that kind of a guy. But anyways, that's my most watched video, I believe, on my channel. The Decalogue video. It's got at least 1,000 views on it. And that kind of boggles my mind. But anyways, my personal favorite of Kieslowski is White, of the Colors Trilogy. It's one of my favorite films of all time, about this married couple, and the woman divorces the Polish husband. The woman that is Julie Delpy's character, and she tries to frame her husband, and he learns, he tries to get back. It's got a really interesting twist at the end, so really good movie. And Blue and Red are good too. Blue's good. Blue's a good film with Juliette Binoche, but White is the standout film. So anyways, that's my favorite genre of films. It's foreign films. I love foreign movies. I love the different perspectives. I could be talking about other films too, Iranian films, Chinese films, films from other places, Czech Republic, you know, Mexico, Brazil. I've seen some other films from some areas. I've seen a few from Thailand, and I just like the other perspective you get from a different country, and also the similarity that we're all human and that we all have problems. I'm sorry that I went on so long, but I really am passionate about foreign cinema, and I hope you enjoyed this video. And now I'll end this video, and I welcome any comments. Thank you very much. Bye now.